Get ready with me while I tell you about my favorite case that I've ever had as a lawyer. I took this case not long after I passed the bar. Another lawyer had already turned this case down, which usually is a red flag. But the only reason the lawyer had turned this case down is because it was a fairly minor car wreck and they couldn't find any insurance to cover the accident. And I say minor car wreck, it's obviously never minor if you're the one who's involved in the wreck. It turns your world upside down. But there was no catastrophic injury. So she calls our law firm and the call gets routed to me. We ended up chatting for about 30 minutes. So the facts of this case are that this was an elderly lady. She was rear-ended. She was in physical therapy for neck and back pain. But after the wreck, even though it wasn't her fault, she was cited for having an expired driver's license. But it was the reason her driver's license was expired that really got me. She had stage 4 breast cancer, and in between going through chemotherapy, radiation, and treating for her accident injuries, she hadn't had time to go and renew her license. And now she didn't have any transportation because her vehicle was totaled and there was no insurance to cover the accident. I immediately take her case. And in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm a new associate at this law firm, and they're going to absolutely kill me and maybe fire me for taking this case that we're probably not going to make any money on. So the first thing I do is start arranging transportation to all of her doctor's appointments and trying to find insurance wherever I could find it. Thank goodness I did eventually find some insurance, which was amazing, but that's not why this is my favorite case ever. So I found insurance and I'm negotiating her injury claim with the insurance company. Well, remember how I told you she got a citation for driving with an expired license? Well, she calls me one day and says, hey, I think I have a court date coming up for my expired license. Well, I'm a civil lawyer, not a criminal lawyer. And not only am I a civil lawyer, but I'm a brand new one. Two very different kinds of lawyers. I know a lot of y'all are thinking, well, just refer to a criminal lawyer. She was paying for chemo, radiation. She didn't have money to pay a criminal lawyer. I am so new to the practice of law at this point that I have no idea if public defenders even handle that sort of thing. Either way, I'm like, you know what? We're doing it. Oh yeah, and by the way, the court date was the next day. I tried to arrange transportation for her to meet me at the courthouse. Nothing. Keep in mind, this is pre-Uber in my area. Also, I forgot to tell you, she is bound to a wheelchair. Sorry, don't hate me. There's gonna have to be a part 2. I immediately call the judge's office, ask for a continuance or for them to reset the hearing. No dice. I am freaking out. But of course, I don't want anyone to know that. So I call the client back and I'm like, okay, everything's good to go. I'm gonna pick you up for your hearing tomorrow. I don't sleep at all that night. I wake up the next morning, throw on my best suit and head out to her house. Pull up in my teeny tiny Hyundai. I go to her front door, wheel her down to my car. I get her loaded in the front seat and I go around to the trunk and load up her wheelchair. This wheelchair barely fits in the back of my car. We get to the courthouse, I get her and her wheelchair out and wheel her in. I am so nervous. I'm literally shaking. I have no idea where to go. I'm too proud to ask for help because I'm a lawyer. Yeah, I got over that real quick later in my career. Finally find where we're supposed to go and we get in there. I have no idea where I'm even supposed to stand. I see all these lawyers over in the corner and I'm like, I'm probably supposed to stand over there, but I have never been to court alone at this point. So I sit with my client and I wait until our case is called. And at this point, it's our case, not just her case, because I am seriously invested. Judge calls our case number and I stand up and I walk to the front and he says to me, have you had a chance to talk with the prosecutor yet? The prosecutor? This is where I think I did something really smart. I said, Judge, may I approach the bench? He said, yeah, of course. So I go up there and I say, Judge, I am not a criminal lawyer. I represent this client on another issue. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. He was so kind. He was like, I got you. That's the prosecutor over there. Go talk to her and you'll be able to work out a deal. I was like, psh, I can handle that. Our agreement was that if my client would get her license renewed in the next 30 days, they would drop the charges. Y'all, me and this client are throwing a party on the way back to her house. The reason this is my favorite case is because I didn't make any money off of that. But she and I remained friends. When I had my son, he spent almost a month in the NICU. She called at least once a week just to check on how he and I were doing. A few years later, I ended up representing her when her back was broken during a really devastating bus crash. And a few years after that, I got a call from her daughter telling me that her mom wanted her to call and notify me when she passed away from breast cancer. I still think about how much I learned from her, not just in law, but also in life. And she was and will always be my favorite client.